over the Targaryen era of Westeros. The Order of the Night's Watch, whose job it is to guard the wall in the far north from wildling raiders, has filled its thinning ranks with the squalor of the dungeons from all over the realm. It became a popular form of punishment for criminals, and often used as a form of clemency for those condemned to die. When it did become popular to request to join the Night's Watch, rather than face the headsman's axe, the Watch began to see its ranks swelled by seasoned lords and knights, especially in the aftermaths of wars or conflicts, with many of the men of the losing side taking the black rather than losing their heads. But one thing must be remembered: while any man condemned can request to join the Watch, it is very much still down to the will of the king if they are granted this request. The time during the downfall of King Maegor the Cruel and the rise of King Jaehaerys the Conciliator in around 48 to 50 AC, the Night's Watch found itself inundated with new members on a scale that it had not seen for centuries. During King Maegor's war with the Faith Militant and Poor Fellows that spanned most of his rule, captured members of both orders were often sent to the wall en masse, rather than keeping them rotting in dungeons, which had become overly full after years of fighting. It created a very strange situation at the wall, wherein hundreds of other like-minded religious zealots were confined to the same place together in a kingdom where the faith was not that dominant of a religion. This issue was only later compounded further when King Jaehaerys took the throne after the death of Maegor in 48 AC. To consolidate his position, the boy king purged his court of any and all hardcore supporters of Maegor, that is, the few that were left by that point. The king also felt that he could no longer trust the remaining members of the Kingsguard who had forsworn their oaths and turned against Maegor. But as membership of the Kingsguard was for life, it would normally prove a challenge to remove the men. Thus, the solution of them taking the black was presented as a workaround, allowing the king to fill his guard with men he trusted would not be turncoats or betray him. 4 of the 5 surviving members of Maegor's Kingsguard chose to take the black: Sir Oliver Bracken, Sir Raymond Mallory, Sir Simon Crane, and Sir John Tollet. At the wall, 2 groups had now been sent there that both had much disdain for the boy king, who was responsible for them being there. Unwisely, almost as soon as they had arrived at the wall, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch gave Sir Oliver Bracken and Sir Raymond Mallory, commanding 2 forts at Rhymegate and Sable Hall, with orders to oversee their repair. A large fraction of the men placed in their command were Poor Fellows and Faith Militant, who too bore resentment for the king. Why the Lord Commander made such a short-sighted decision can only be speculated, as within a few weeks the 2 knights decided to make these castles their own seats of power and establish themselves as lords, with the former Faith Militant at their command. Only a few weeks prior, the Lord of Winterfell, Brandon Stark, had died, with his son Sir Walton succeeding him. The sudden rebellion that broke out at the wall in 50 AC amongst the men at Rhymesgate and Sable Hall caught not only the Night's Watch off guard, but also the new Lord of Winterfell, to whom had not expected to be tested so soon. Lord Walton gathered his strength and rode to the wall to join the remaining loyal watchmen in putting down the rebels, Sir Oliver Bracken and Sir Raymond Mallory. In truth, this Night's Watch uprising proved to be short-lived, but bloody at the same time, and would have far-reaching political impacts in the south. For every man of the Night's Watch who joined the rebellion, 10 remained true to their vows. Most of those that did turn cloak were former members of the Faith Militant or Poor Fellows, and even some hardcore Maegor supporters. Once joined by Lord Stark and his bannermen, the Black Brothers of the Watch retook Rhymegate with ease and hanged the Oathbreakers, who had joined Sir Oliver, a fitting punishment for any who break their vow to the Watch. Sir Oliver himself was beheaded by Lord Stark, with his celebrated Valyrian steel greatsword, Ice, in one swift swing of the blade. When word of the events at Rhymegate reached Sable Hall, the rebels there, under the command of Sir Raymond Mallory, fled beyond the wall, in hopes of making common cause with the wildlings in the nearby forest, whom had no like for the men of the Night's Watch, or lords of House Stark. Lord Walton, perhaps foolishly, pursued them, but 2 days north in the snows of the haunted forest, he and his men were reportedly set upon by giants. It is written afterwards that Walton Stark slew 2 of them with ice, before he was dragged from his saddle and torn apart, limb from limb. His surviving men carried him back to Castle Black in pieces. As for Sir Raymond Mallory and the other deserters who went north of the wall, the wildlings gave them a cold welcome. Rebels or no, the free folk had no use for crows. It is not so simple to try and swap sides beyond the wall. Just because you have a common foe is no guarantee. Sir Raymond's head was delivered to Eastwatch by the Sea half a year later by a small band of wildlings. When asked what had happened to the rest of his men who had followed him beyond the wall, the wildling chieftain just laughed and said, we ate them. While such a statement might come across as a poor joke, it is well known among the men of the Watch that several wildling clans practiced cannibalism. If the rebels had spent more time learning about the Night's Watch and their foe rather than plotting revenge for events past, they maybe would have sought freedom running to the south rather than into the jaws of a greater foe beyond the wall. Brandon Stark's second son and Walton's brother, Alaric, became the Lord of Winterfell. He would rule the north for 23 years. An able man, though a stern one, but for a long while he had no good to say of King Jaehaerys, for he blamed the king's overuse of the clemency for his brother Walton's death, allowing the Night's Watch to be overrun by several different factions with aligned grievances and aims. Some sort of rebellion was always going to be on the cards. Once a turncloak, always a turncloak. The Lords of Winterfell were often heard to say that His Grace should have beheaded Maegor's men rather than just sending them to the war. What is the blood of 2 traitors for the countless Northmen and men of the Watch we lost, putting down such a hopeless and pointless rebellion?